I'm good.
Okay.
We'll be live in 5 seconds, I think.
Okay.
Okay, we are live.
I'm not looking. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have this up. It reminds me I need to silence my phone. Let's go ahead and do that before we get too distracted. Um, uh, I am so excited to be doing something a little bit on a different pace. We're going to be talking about female pleasure. We haven't done a lot in our Power and Pleasure journal, um, which we want to correct. We actually have a lot of material queued up, and hope to be kind of diving into some interesting topics. Um, Anna is here today with us. We have done, was it a live that we did together, Anna?
No, we
Before?
recorded it.
Interview.
I think it wasn't live that time, but we did have a conversation before. But I think we recorded it.
Okay. I think so. I think it's an maybe it hasn't come out yet. Aisha can let us know. But I feel like we have been able to connect a couple times since then. Like we're old friends now. So you're like an honorary a member of the Labor Collective team. So thank you for being here with us today. So Anna Lynn, am I pronouncing the last name correctly?
So nobody does. Like nobody
How do you
pronounces it
Yes,
correctly.
totally.
So in Swedish, my name is Anna Linde, but in
Anna
Brazil,
Linde.
my name
Okay.
is Anna. So
Okay.
Anna Linde, in whatever way that works.
Okay, so Anna Linda. Is that good?
Sí. Sí.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So she is a sexologist who has spent her career helping women understand their own bodies. Today we're going to be talking about orgasms, and helping. This is still something that we often get a lot of questions about. Helping women understand what they are, what they're not, what you know, what are the real ones and how to know the difference. The spoiler alert, once you've had one, it's obvious. It's like I think you did. I think you told me that analogy. And I love I like steal little phrases from people and I just like incorporate it into my lexicon. And it's such an accurate way of describing it. Like you're never, wondering, oh, did I sneeze? Like you know it. And so helping women identify that, but also helping women identify potential blockers. And this is going to be, as we started off saying, a conversation we hope to really, dig deeper in. So I want to open the floor to Anna to start with her professional framing. I want, to give her space to tell the audience about how she thinks about the issues. And, I think the nice thing is we can hopefully provide both a clinical perspective and Anna's more bodied perspective, and hopefully people will walk away learning a lot.
Yes, that's a great goal and plan and intentions. And so you said that I'm a sexologist, which practically or academically means that I have a master's degree in sexology. So I studied it in the university. I also have a master's degree in counseling, and I studied dance and movement therapy. So when I work with sex, when I work with sexual health or sexual health and reproductive health and rights, it's my main focus to center how it feels in the body, like what is actually going on in the body, and how can we move from performance anxiety, from stress, from all of these things and mental health challenges in general to feeling more liberated or feeling more relaxed, more happy. And I think what you said about pleasure, I don't think everybody knows how to define pleasure, even for themselves. Like we talk about orgasm as the long-term goal, or like how we should end, but we could also challenge that narrative on how we think about pleasure, or how we think about satisfaction, or how we think about, performance or orgasms, which maybe is one of the most important parts from my perspective in these conversations, because then every person who listens can choose to shift the narrative or to think about it differently than the frame or the box that they are in right now.
Yeah, I love that. I think also there, especially in women's health now, there's just so many things, so many negative things happening, that we rarely get to stop and, say anything positive or good, or, about being a woman. And there's like a tragedy. It's like a tragedy to that. I also think that women are so much on guard, and that, like, you know psychologically over time, has a huge impact. And then I think the kind of last point I want to make is, just about relationship dynamics right now. We know what the data tells us, and like what people confirm, is there is a lot of, especially for young women, uh, like partnership, if they choose male partners, right, is not, for many women, is not going well. There is, this uncontrolled misogyny on the right that has essentially had a permission structure, to do things that were before very unpermissible. And that's going to have consequences for the foreseeable future, right? People don't just recover from the sorts of, um, you know, basically on like a societal level, um, you know, these really embedded relationship, and I don't know, I don't even know how to really describe it. Like just the dynamic between men and women, like that's not something that just gets reversed overnight, and is going to have really significant consequences, um, for society writ large. And it's one of the, I think one of the really tragic things that we, because there's so much tragedy happening right now that we just don't talk about. But I think about, especially as, someone who is, I'm getting used to calling myself middle aged. And it's just very different even than when I was, young and dating. The culture is just very, very different, to the point where it's just kind of bizarre, watching the dynamic. It's hard for me to understand.
Yeah, and I think one way to describe it, because you said I don't know how to describe it or how to say it, but I would say that we have a very different relational privilege when we date, or when we are in heterosexual relationships or partnerships. And when we constantly need to fight for our right to exist at work, out when we're out, when we're wherever we are, then it can be extremely exhausting to also fight for something in our relationship.
Hmm.
Um, and I think we tend to get used to that fight, or to be, always on high alert, or feeling that we need to protect ourselves. But for women, our nervous system, like we don't really have access to arousal or playfulness or
Hmm.
pleasure if we're not safe in our bodies. And then, of course, it's extremely hard to reach that place of safety, of playfulness of I want to explore, or like I feel like I want to do something new with my partner, or whatever it is, if we don't even know how unsafe we're feeling in general, and we bring that home and we don't want to talk about things, or we were unable to share many of the things that are going on, then that will also affect how we share our intimacy and our sexual connection.
Right. Yeah, no, we're gonna share some numbers, but I would be curious to know if they have like moved at all with the, because we know that there's like this sexlessness that's happening with younger generations in a way that didn't happen like with my generation, right? For example. And like you said, like there's all these other, there are young women who are just like deciding to like just give up partnership altogether, right? Like, and so like what is the um uh and at the scale that it's happening, um there's obviously societal factors that are this isn't just someone having making an independent decision for some unknown reason, right? When you see large groups of people making similar decisions in a way that's inconsistent with like generations prior. I mean, there's a cause for that. And I'm sure the real data, I don't know if we'll ever get the actual data, probably would reflect that in like, you know, different metrics of pleasure, right? We know now that women in heterosexual relationships have far fewer orgasms than women in same-sex relationships. So, somewhere in the ballpark of 60% of heterosexual women do, versus, close to 90% of women who are in a same-sex relationship. Whereas almost all men in partnered, in heterosexual partnered sex have orgasms, right? Close to 95%. And so that's a big difference, right? And one of the biggest changes, or one of the things to really note is like why is that the case? And when you kind of dig down into it, there are all these other things at play, right? Like you said, like the safety, and just like feeling like playful, right? You have to have a certain amount of just settledness to even let yourself get to the point where you feel open enough to for those hormones to even be at play, right? And then when you put layer on top of that lack of understanding of female anatomy, the fact that for most women, like if they don't have clitoral stimulation, they're not going to orgasm. The fact that you have to have, time, and time is a luxury for a lot of people. And then, layering on like cultural variations on top of that, you have a lot of women who I actually think that the number is lower. And you will, you, I, it's so funny because I obviously I take care of women. I see women in office settings, right? In L&D, like and sex comes up in conversation, obviously. And it's very surprising to me like how many women don't like sex at all. Like really, really have negative views of sex. And so when I see numbers as high like of 60%, I'm like, that seems high to me. Because I don't know. I don't know what your perspective is, Anna. You might have a better sample of the population, but even that seems kind of high to me.
Yeah, and it has so many, it correlates with so many different things. And I meet a lot of women who fake their orgasms, and they come and they ask how can I stop? Like I've been faking for years.
Yeah.
How can I get out of this trap? You know? And so many of those women are faking because they don't want their partner to be disappointed, or they want
Yeah.
their partner to feel good about
Yeah.
himself, which is one part that makes it really tricky for those type of women to actually find themselves in the way that they need. And another thing I'm thinking about, which I was, reminded of when you read these numbers out loud, is that are the same type women that answered we don't get an orgasm in our heterosexual relationship, do they know how to orgasm on their own?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
so is it about the relationship, or is it about
Yeah.
them as individuals not feeling safe enough, or not knowing, or not having the time, or
Right.
for whatever different reasons that it is?
Right.
And I think porn is a thing here as well. Because when young people, or younger people than us, or maybe same age as us as well, feel that they don't want to engage in sex, then what is the function of sex? Is it just
Right.
to get a release for their partners because they have been
Right.
so marinated in the all access of pornography? Then I wouldn't want to have sex either. If this is how I'm
Right.
treated in the bedroom by somebody that I'm dating, then I would also just choose to not not engage in that. So I think it's a mix of different things that just makes it easier to choose to simply not engage in this type of
Yeah.
connections, because it also doesn't feel like connections if I'm not
Yeah.
attuned, then if the other person is not attuned to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that makes perfect sense. But there is it's very sad. I find it really, really sad. Uh Specifically, when I think about Black women, other women of color, and the kind of silence about this, right? People have never been given the language for this conversation. Uh, and you know, are either like just don't know who to ask, right? Don't know like what is an orgasm? Yeah. Like when do you know that you have one, right? Like you and like they don't have people that they who honestly don't know. And uh we don't provide a lot of there's no like cultural script for it. I think in I don't know, maybe I don't know if this is a stereotype, but I feel my sense is that white women get a lot more freedom to express themselves sexually. Um, and like that that version kind of exists in a way uh I don't know how to say it, like not maybe celebrated I think is too strong of a word, but maybe not as demonized. Whereas for Black women, it's they're it you know that we have been so sexualized that like there's like this thin line between um, embracing your sexuality and um, having like shame about it, right? And a lot of women don't know how to like comfortably like get over
Walk
the
that
that
line,
line.
or like
Um,
slide on it.
yeah, yeah.
No,
And
and I
so,
think continue.
no, no, you go.
No, because you said about white women, and you compared it with like the experience is different, or from your perspective, you think that the experience is different. Um, and just to add to that, that white women are not, you know, exposed or pushed into situations where they are fetishized for their bodies or for their color. They are, honored is a strong word, like you're saying, not as demonized is better. So when you add the racialized aspect, or when you add race to the mix of things
Yeah.
for women of color or Black women, it becomes much harder to navigate.
Yeah.
Because we don't know necessarily if somebody we are dating is going to fetishize us for our color. That's not in the deal,
Right.
which I think happens a lot more than what we want to talk about. And the stereotypes, the ideas of what Black women are or can, or Asian women want or can, like this, it's a mess. Like it's a mess for us to try to navigate when we're not able then to actually focus in ourselves fully.
Yeah.
Because we're also raised with this type of pornography. So it's normal for a lot of men and women to have been watching this type of pornography and think that this is normal, while it's maybe more disgusting, violent, humiliating than actually giving or bringing pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much, and then you layer on, like, so many people have been, like, they've had very negative sexual experiences, sexually abused as children. Like, the rates are actually quite high. I always like to remind people, like, it's not uncommon. You definitely know people. Like, people, everyone's like, oh my God, they, like, statistically, yes, you know a lot of people, who've experienced this, because it's very common. And when you layer on that, on top of, all the societal issues, and then now, you might have particular relationship dynamics, and then maybe you have, issues with your body. I mean, there's just so many things that make it, challenging. We want to actually provide a space. I think we've been trying to play around with, like, the format of these things. But I think for one of these sessions, we should definitely provide, like, a private space so people can ask questions, because that's what I want to give people an opportunity to do that. Like, come off camera if they want, or even type in the chat. But I understand that not everyone will want to do that, like, into the open internet, for example. And so, hopefully we can do that, just to give people a place where they can come and, just ask. Um, and it's like, if you've never had an orgasm, I want to normalize it for you. Like, you are not alone. There are many women who've never had one. And it's also never too late, right? And it's worth keeping trying, right? I will tell you, it's worth trying, for a variety of different reasons. The data, it's clear, like, there are health benefits. Um, for sure. There are, like, stress relieving benefits. It fun. I mean, it's your body's. It's a very natural way of. I don't want to keep using the word pleasure, but, like, um, it it there's a regulatory aspect of it. I think that we don't, because, especially in the U.S., we have a really hard time talking about sex. That uh uh we we discount it. But it can have really significant, health, benefits, right? And you know, from, like, a stress and pain relief perspective, the fact that we don't teach people strategies around that, it just speaks to, like, we rather give someone a narcotic medication than teach someone how to, like, use a vibrator. That's you know silly. you know and that just, speaks to just how backwards it has kind of become, that there's so much inbuilt shame into your own natural physiology, that ways that your body has of regulating itself are just unavailable to people, because of all this cultural programming.
Yeah. And I mean, there is so much shame in general is so problematic because it numbs us. Like we get numbed, we get disconnected, we get, in a freeze or fawn, we isolate ourselves, like it's impossible to fully feel that I'm in my senses, that I'm connecting with my erotic self, that I can move freely if I have strong shame hovering over myself and my body all the time. And just to add something about what you said about sexual trauma, there is, and people in general, when it comes to sexual trauma, that are not maybe aware of how much this is impacting them, they can either shut it off, like they don't want to have sex, they're not going there, it's not for them. But the other side is true as well. So I see or I meet a lot of men that has been sexually abused or touched in inappropriate ways, which creates so much anxiety, which is a high arousal state as sexual arousal. And for some of these men, it's easier, to act out and have more sex and want more and more and more, because their bodies are trying to process this trauma to actually get rid of the anxiety. So it can go in both ways. It could either be, I'm not reaching an orgasm because I cannot find or cannot get access to that type of high arousal state because I have too much anxiety or shame or stress. So I'm ending up in this side, and then I'm not ending up in the side where I want to. But for many, and it's probably more men than women, probably it's more men than women in general, if they have a lot of anxiety or a lot of shame, it's very easy to end up in masturbating or having sex as a way to release that from their bodies. But then we are recreating the trauma over and over again. So it's like making sure that we move in the right direction towards healing and reclaiming, and not getting sucked into repeating things that are not brilliant.
Yeah. So we're going to take a minute just to kind of talk about, I would actually be interested to hear, like, when people ask you about like what an orgasm is, like, how do you explain it? Like how do you describe it to them? Do you get that question a lot, just out of curiosity, about like women trying to figure out if they've ever orgasmed or not?
Yeah, it happens that women ask, like, how would I know if I had an orgasm? But they also ask, how much is it supposed to hurt? Which is also a disappointing question, or it is disappointing that they have to ask. And then I usually start with reminding them that you should be wet before penetration. If penetration is something that you are wanting to have. And then I get this face like, oh yeah. And I'm like, yes, please. Like, remember that. Also, because if we're not aroused enough, if we're not relaxed enough, if the touch we are given or giving ourselves is too much, too hard, too fast, too much, not in attunement with our bodies, then we also numb the nerve ends and our capacity to feel.
Yes.
So it's like back to basic, and take a closer look at, what do I actually like what kind of touch makes me wet, or like just that I want more, or like what is turning that side of me on, and is that side of me getting blocked because I have performance anxiety, because I really want to have an orgasm? Then you're blocking it immediately, because if you get performance anxiety, then again, we're moving from the pleasure, having fun, relaxed, to anxiety, and then we're blocking it out. So I usually say, like you said about sneezing, like, if you're sneezing, like, then if you sneezed. But it's the same with an orgasm, in the way that we talk about orgasms, because an orgasm could also be, a full body shaking, intense, something that you have a hard time describing in words. People wake up having orgasms in the middle of the night and get scared because they really don't know what was going on or why that happened. So there is so many different ways, and there is a lot of different types of orgasms as well that we don't necessarily know what it's about, or like I hear a lot of women saying that, oh, but my partner wants me to squirt because
Mhm.
he's seen it in porn and it means that
Mhm.
it's really good.
Mhm.
Okay, but it's like it looks like that for a reason in porn.
Mhm.
It's like, but when you and I had a client a couple of years ago who was really practicing in this, and she came back and described that when she was really attuned and
Mhm.
really was dancing with herself for only for her, she could get a fountain orgasm. So it was just
Mhm.
rinsing it from her legs when she was dancing. Nobody was
Mhm.
touching her, nobody was doing anything. So I think, with that said, it's so important that we figure out how to balance the sensory input in our bodies so that we can reach as high as we want,
Mhm.
because then we can also choose, how do we want this to be expressed? Is it a high shaking things? What kind of experience am I actually longing for? And how
Yeah.
can I create that map for me personally,
Yeah.
not what I see or hear other people do? And that's what I would
Yeah.
like for us to do more of in general.
Yes. Yeah. It does. So, one thing I try to tell, because I think it really depends on the people's goals, right? And I'm married, I'm partnered, so I can see it from both perspectives. I can, from multiple perspectives, honestly, as like a woman, right? But also as a physician, as a wife, and you can have these explorations. I want to just make it clear to people: there's not just one way. You can involve your partner, or not involve your partner. You can, it can start with work completely outside of the sex, or it could be focused around sex, right? Like, I mean, there's so many ways that you can do it. And I there's no one way, but I think the things that I think are critical for anyone who wants to have this sort of self exploration, and it's important. That's the other thing I think, to I want to communicate from a clinical perspective. If you should be comfortable, and there's so many women who don't even want to look at their vagina. You need to be comfortable looking and touching your vagina from a medical perspective. You need to know, does it feel different? Does it look different? I cannot tell you how many people have like rip roaring cancer, fungating masses out of their vagina, and those take a long time to grow. And it's because either they were too scared to look, or no physician looked, or it's so that, like, it hurts my heart. It's like, how did you have that growing out of your vagina for, like, I mean, that's been there for, like, without exaggeration, years. Sometimes it's much more rapid, but at least months. And not say anything to the point where, and it just breaks my heart, right? Because the vagina is still thought of in such like a negative way, in so many contexts, right? And so that's one thing to just, I want to say, like, you should, everyone tonight, if you have a vagina,
Use
take a
it.
mirror. Yeah,
Take
exactly.
care of
No,
it.
take a mirror. I'm serious. Take a mirror, put it between your legs. Uh, I want you to look at your vagina. I want you to feel your vagina. You should know what normal feels like, because if it feels different, if it starts to look different, if there's abnormal discharge, um, you know, uh, like, you would never say that that was okay for your kid, right? Like, you would never, like, it's just things that we allow for ourselves. You would never allow for someone that you love. And so that's kind of one thing I want to, like, just normalize. Like, look at your vagina, touch your vagina. It is a normal part of health. It is. We teach breast exams. We should teach vaginal exams. Like, you should be able. You should feel comfortable touching your vagina. It should not be some place that you're uncomfortable to touch. The other thing I want to kind of normalize is, um, not, female orgasms can be challenging. There are a lot of like real barriers to them. Especially if you don't have like the right technique, or if the woman doesn't know enough about what she likes to direct a partner or even herself. It can be challenging to achieve. And I just want to kind of normalize that for people. That does not mean your partner is not skilled. That doesn't mean anything. It really is a lack of education, a lack of um, comfort. There's a lot of societal programming. I mean, there's so many reasons, right? And so many couples, I think, in particular, you know, there's a lot of baggage even having this discussion, right? And we you could be perfectly happy in a marriage and not have an orgasm. I just want to say that, right? It doesn't mean your wife doesn't love you, doesn't mean she's not attracted to you. Like that is very much possible. And the third thing I want to just highlight is if you don't, if you haven't had an orgasm, you haven't tried a sex toy, at least my personal thing is, I recommend them to patients. And a lot of them are actually covered by insurance, for like conditions, because uh, it maybe that's what you need, right? And you can incorporate sex toys into your sex life, right? You can teach your partner how to use them. There are so many ways of normalizing this, and making this an experience that is good for both you and your partner, because sex is better when both people enjoy it. That's just unless there's some, you know if if you don't if that's not the case for you, that's not great. You should not want your partner uncomfortable. You should not want your partner not enjoying themselves, right? Like sex, I mean, it's gratifying for both um people. And a lot of male partners, when they see their partner orgasm, they enjoy it. They enjoy it a lot, when they see like a real orgasm. Because they also, once you see in your partner orgasm for real, it's very hard to be fooled. And so I really, it breaks my heart when people are asking that question, because I'm like, oh, that means they really never saw their partner. If you can keep fooling someone, I don't know. To me, I couldn't, I can't fake an orgasm, not convincingly. Not that's equivalent to like a real orgasm. And because there is a lack of motor control, right? When many people have an orgasm, like you actually cannot control it. It's not something that you're physically uh, doing, right, on purpose. It's reflex, right? Like a sneeze, right? And so it of course will look very different. And the fact that there's so much cultural programming about like faking orgasms makes me think that like so many people haven't really like experienced a real orgasm like in front of someone else. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Um, so because you said, you need to touch yourself, like you need to dare to touch yourself. And then later you said, if you didn't try or if you haven't tried sex toys, then please include that if that would be something for you. One thing that is really important, whichever you choose, hygiene. We
Mhm.
don't we don't remember, we didn't learn that we should touch ourselves with the care. Like when we're
Yes.
cooking, we clean our
Yes.
hands when we
Yes.
cook, we clean our
Yes.
hands after we've been to the bathroom. Please also wash your hands before you touch yourself, because your pussy
Or your partner.
deserves that care.
Yes.
Also, yes, to all of the partners listening, um, because you deserve that care. That's also safety.
Mhm.
So if you have sex
Yes.
toys, make sure that they are clean, that you
Yes.
rinse them off. Also for the pH, what is the word in English? The pH balance? Balance.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
there is a thing with different and not different brands of sex toys, but depending on which
The
material you
plastic.
use,
Yeah, the material.
like be careful with that. Careful.
Yeah.
Remind yourself to maybe not
Yeah.
overuse it 10 times a day for the
Yeah.
next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
because you will get yourself out of balance.
Yeah.
But what you said about the mirror, because I think when you said that, there's a lot of people feeling that, oof, like I don't want to do that, or like why would I do that? Another way to do it is to bring a mirror, to sit down on the floor on a pillow, preferably, or on something soft, and have the mirror so you can see your eyes, but you know that you're sitting there naked or without your underwear, and just light the candle and have eye contact with yourself to fully be able to be with yourself in that way before you shift or adjust the mirror in whatever ways that makes sense. And I think also, touching yourself to know what is normal or not, that takes time. Like you won't know it if you do it the first time today and then you know exactly what it means next week. It's like you have to build that relationship or connection with your body, with the respect and the sacredness that we lost in so many ways, in the society or in the world of porn. And I think that's something I seriously think makes a big difference for every woman everywhere on earth, that bring back the sacredness. Whatever that means for you, bring it back. Like we need it.
Yeah, no, that's right. So to talk a little bit about anatomy, because I think that is one of the things we want people to walk away with. The Many women don't know what the clitoris is. One thing that's horrifying. Oh man, obviously I'm a gynecologist. I've had attendings who just like they don't, we're in the vagina, right? We should be treating people's vagina as sacred, right? We should be treating their clitoris as sacred, right? And there's some, um, uh, and this I've seen a big difference between male and female attendings. But especially in oncology, like some, will just like just like cutting off the clitoris, like doing things that are if you're doing like a vulvectomy, for example, and it's not like they're doing it to be barbaric, right? They're not, they're just not thinking like, oh, we should do everything we can to preserve this part of her vulva, if it's at all safe, right? Or it's something that you should tell them that you might lose your clitoris. Like that's a very serious thing. You would never. It's like castrating a man, right? You wouldn't just like, oh, what's this projection here? Like,
Sorry,
oh,
we lost
let's
that part.
it's kind of like in the way. So let me just go ahead and chop it right off. That would be absurd, right? You would be like, the whole operating room would be like, what kind of animal are you? You just like, decided to castrate this man, like it wouldn't make any sense. But we do that a lot for female anatomy. So I just want to, put that out there for ovaries too, right? Ovaries are like testicles, right? You wouldn't like just remove testicles for no reason. We have historically removed ovaries for absolutely no reason. Perfectly good ovaries, just remove them from women's bodies because we're in there anyways, like doing the surgery, and that just is it's actually insane if you step back for even 1 second to think about it. But the clitoris is not like just this little button at the top of your vagina, right? The clitoris is actually quite big. It's about 10 centimeters. In length. So I'm an OB, so I think in like centimeters. So this big, right? It's this whole dimension. Um, and so it has 8,000 nerve endings. That's double the nerve endings of the penis. And most of it is internal. And so the clitoris is actually exquisitely tender. And women are capable of, because of that, the size of the clitoris and the number of nerve endings, and the characteristics in different, parts of the vagina. Women are capable of very different types of orgasms. And if you're orgasming frequently, you can start to be able to, like, basically know, like, okay, this, I had this type of orgasm, or I had that type of orgasm, or this type of orgasm happens when I do this. And so, you know, um, we want people to understand that it's a complicated organ, right? And that uh, there are many ways to stimulate the clitoris, right? Obviously, on the outside, but you can try to stimulate the clitoris internally, and that is something in partnered sex that, if a couple is struggling with that, helping, if it's a male partner, helping the male partner, if that's what the female partner desires, helping him understand that there are many ways that he can try to stimulate the clitoris, and most of them are not with his penis inside her vagina, right? But that doesn't mean it's not intimate. That doesn't mean it's not sex, right? And then there are also ways that you can stimulate the clitoris from inside the vagina, and you know, and stimulate from both, from both perspectives, right? And that, you know, uh, taking the time to really do that exploration with your partner, in itself, is like a type of intimacy that, I think people don't recognize. I'm so sorry, I have to get the door. Until until they have experienced it. But it can be very, it really can transform relationships, and I recommend it to, if couples are interested in, like, kind of learning those techniques. I think it could be a really great bonding experience that will bring you closer, as well as, make sex better. So sorry, 1 second, guys.
Yes. Yeah, go. Um, I will just add to that, that we talked about the different ways where women's bodies are not respected, and when surgeons or when medical staff are cutting off the clitoris, like you said, well, just as a reminder that when women had hysteria, the cure was to remove to do a hysterectomy. So unfortunately, my air conditioning just started. Yeah, okay. So it's in the history of medical science to treat our bodies in this way. So it's really, really, really not so weird or hard to understand why women are so connected from our power, from our sensuality, from our bodies. Just wanted to add that. And then what you said about the nerve ends, like it's 8,000 of them, like it's a lot. And the clitoris, because it looks like a button, inside of the hoof, like a car. Okay, but inside of the lips. But it's usually really sensitive. So if you have a partner, or if you have the idea that you should be able to stimulate it right on it, no, like that's not necessarily at all what you need, but you can hold your fingers above it and make small circles. You can hold them even higher up. You can, like, you really explore what actually feels good for you. And please tell your partners if they are too much, too intense. Because if we touch the clitoris or whichever part of your pussy too hard, too much, too intense, then you go numb. Then you will definitely not reach an orgasm, even if you really want to, in that situation. And just to add, when you said about making sure that you didn't use these words, but making sure that sex is something that connects you and your partner, because it can be a beautiful thing. It's something that makes you feel more like a union, and it makes your bond much more special if you have an amazing sex life compared to maybe nothing for whatever different reasons. But the angles, because when we're talking about stimulating the clitoris from the inside and not only from the outside, angles, like angles, people, angles, please choose your angles properly. And you can think about this when you practice self-care with yourself, which I also think everybody should definitely make sure that they do for whatever reasons, but take that time to be with you. But like, do you want a pillow under your butt? Do you want to stand up? Do you want to sit on a chair? Do you like what, where is the angle, and how can you move your hips however you sit or laying down or your back? Like, what is creating the angle that is good for you, that makes you feel that, wow, this is really good, or this is, hitting in the exact right place, or whatever it is. And remember that those angles the same when you choose positions together. So one position can work really good in the beginning, and then it can be another position that just feels totally wrong, or like, but remember that there is no right or wrong. Like, it's depending on the arousal and the situation and the speed or the pace that you're moving in. So explore angles and positions.
So we have a question. Thank you for asking that question, because I think it's a great question. So the question was about porn. Is porn bad in a limited, everything in moderation approach? And my personal counseling, I would like to see what you say, Anna, but I don't say porn is bad for people. You're adults. I think there are a couple of, the way I counsel people when they ask me this question is porn is artificial, just like, you're not sitting there thinking like, oh, I really should, be like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, right? Because that doesn't make any sense, right? Because that's a movie. Sex is like the same thing, right? The porn is for a production value, most of it, right? You have amateur porn, if that's something that people like better. There are a lot of like complicated issues with pornography, like consent, and you want to make sure that you're not participating in exploitation. But I don't think writ large porn is bad. I think there's couples who like watching porn together. I think it could be a way for people to like, a type of foreplay if that is interesting to people. So no, I don't say there's a blanket thing about that porn is always bad. I think understanding what it is that you're responding to. I think it's important for people to identify that they're like why they like watching porn, and what is it about the porn, because there are a lot of dynamics of porn that are not healthy, that you don't want to carry into your relationship. And if that's kind of what you're responding to, and then expecting a similar response from your partner, that's obviously is going to be problematic, right? But I think again, like, in a, for people who do things in moderation with like a healthy perspective, I tend to, my counseling tends to be a live and let live sort of philosophy. I try not to be too heavy handed with people. That's just my personal style of counseling. I try not to be judgmental, because it just it doesn't serve anyone. And so that's what I would typically say to someone who asks about pornography.
I usually always say the statement that porn is not an instruction manual for how you want to or should react or do in real life. So porn can be extremely helpful when we unfold or explore fantasies or kinks, or like, oh, I didn't know I like this. Wow, like this is so special. But the risk with pornography is that we overdo it because we consume something. It's like eating too much sugar, or gambling. has the same effect, or playing violent games, computer games or whatever, has a similar effect to us. So it's to hold that balance, like what is, moderation or balanced for me, for whoever that asked. There's a lot of people that has problem with keeping that balance, and it's problematic from a sexual health perspective, from a relational aspect, or whichever we want to use, because we accidentally train ourselves to that extreme high arousal, or those extreme pictures, or extreme violence, or humiliation, or whatever it is, which means that we lose the appreciation for the actual pace that these type of interactions are in reality. That's the biggest negative effect that I see. And I think what I just said, like, don't use it as instruction manuals. I think that's really important. And also keep the balance for anyone.
Yeah.
But also don't think that it's good just because you get a reaction. Because if you turn it off and you feel like you want to throw up, that it feels disgusting, that you're nauseous, then don't watch it. Like, listen to the reaction after.
Right. Yeah, I think a porn can provide a way for people to talk about sex, and ask partners questions that otherwise they would find a hard way of finding entry into. What an exercise I have some couples do is like, you can pick the pornography and then let her pick the pornography, right? Give her the control, right? And you'll see a difference, right? You'll see often the things that you were responding to, like she might not have, she might have thought that was boring, and the things that like that she finds interesting, and that will give you some insight into what your partner is actually responding to, what does she actually like. The other thing is, so much porn is male centric. um I like I like tell my husband, like, I, I don't want to watch that. Like, like, it's just, to me, it just like feels like, uh, I mean, it feels like bad acting, right? Like, if I don't know how else to say it. And that, from my perspective, completely takes me out of the experience, right? Then it feels like, you are observing something that is artificial. Um, and so it doesn't have like the same, it takes you completely out of your body. But there's other alternatives too. Like I write, like, I do fiction writing, and we do like intimate scenes. And so, people should give that a try, right? If porn is not your thing, like, to me, a good book, that your mind, to me, is much more powerful. That's my personal preference. And I think people should explore, right? What are the things, because it might be different for you and your partner. Maybe visual stimulation is something that you respond to. Maybe she actually finds it, like you said, like, it turns her off, like, she finds it gross, right? But there are, like, things you can listen to, things you can read. That's why so many women, that's the other thing people don't recognize. Why do women read so much romance? A lot of the time, it's not just for love, right? This is for sexual arousal, right? It's just the women don't have a language they can use to put that in a box, right? And so we put it in the romance box. But it's not necessarily romance. Not in like the way I would classify romance. It's more erotic in nature, right? And giving women the freedom to just say that, like, yeah, I like I like reading these books because they turn me on, and it helps me explore my body. Just be able to kind of say that and feel comfortable saying that. without having to couch it in like, oh, I love the love story. Maybe you don't love the love story. Maybe it has something to do with the love story, right? It could, maybe it could, maybe it couldn't, right? But learning to disconnect those things, I I try to encourage people because they could be related, but maybe they're not. And the more honestly we can start exploring those things, the more we can do it kind of safely. Because the biggest thing is the dishonesty to me. Like two people, two consenting adults coming to an experience that's sexual in nature. Well, that's adult intimacy, right? And it's complicated. There's so many things layered on it, right? And the biggest requirements though is that both people are consenting and both people are being honest. And getting to that point where you can have that honest dialogue with a partner is something that we don't teach people how to do in relationships. And so what do you default to? You default to this dynamic that people have seen outside, right? Of what they think a relationship should be. When it's a lot more nuanced and I don't want to say like unglamorous, but normal. It's a lot more normal than what you're gonna see outside, and that is fine. Like that is what you should expect, right? The same way, again, like you wouldn't expect to be Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman, right? That is not. We understand that that is fantasy. That is outside of our outside of what is real in life. It is a movie. Sex is no different.
No, and let's see the comments or the question we get.
Nancy just thinks sex is romance. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, like it gets very confounded. But those are different things. Those are very
Yeah,
different
and
things.
yeah, I have a lot to say about this everything right now. But so I think if I'm trying to keep it short, the things we talked about being visual or porn, watching porn together or not. Personally, it's not going to turn me on to watch porn where I get immediately shown or overwhelmed with visual content because I'm not a visual person necessarily, which is also why a lot of women would absolutely not and are not. We just do not want to get dick pics sent to us. Like, have that as a ground rule, please, and then let the women ask if they want it. I think that's a good summary because we need the balance in the sensory input. We need to be in our bodies to ground ourselves in it so that we can share this very arousing or special experience, whatever it is that our partner or ourselves would like to be in. So while our energy, if you look at sexual energy from a Taoistic point of view, then women are yin, which is more of the receiving, which means we need to surrender fully. We need to, be taken care of and whatever that means for that person. And then pornography sometimes, maybe often, moves in not the pace we need to actually have the time to ground ourselves and be in our bodies in that way. And I think I have a comment about the porn that I don't like watching porn. However, I do like watching myself with the partner. And this is such an interesting point because almost everyone has an either strong desire or a strong fear, which are basically the same when it's high arousal states, to be seen or to be visible.
Yeah.
Which is vulnerable also somewhere in the middle. So it's like it's so many people that love this or would like this more, and they don't know how to talk about it, and they don't know how to do it. And just for to add another thing to that specific comment, the distance between how we watch something. Like, I can appreciate somebody, my partner, whoever, getting undressed if it's 1 meter or 2 meters from me, because I would like to see the whole person and the details and the movement. I really don't want to get a dick pic of it. Like it's totally the opposite experience for me.
Yeah.
So whoever you are in a relationship or not, think also about the distance. Like, is
Yeah.
this the right space, or
Yeah.
what is the space for you to
Yeah.
fully appreciate what you're watching? And the
Yeah.
same, like this person is saying that I do like watching myself with a partner. What space is it, or like what is the
Yeah.
distance?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also give yourself the flexibility to want different things, because that's completely normal. There are sometimes that you might want something that looks more classically feminine, um, and then sometimes maybe not, right? And that's okay, right?
Oh, it
And
will
being able to
change.
just, yeah, it be allowing
Yeah.
yourself to want, like, say, like, I mean, the spectrum of sexuality for women is wide, just as wide as it for men, right? And so women have all sorts of um you know like fantasies. They have all sorts of um ways that they want to be both receiving and also dominant, right? Like, both these things can exist in a partner. Sexuality is incredibly complex. That's the first thing to get to like put out there.
They live in
um
all of us. The
they live
energies,
in
like we
all of
have
us. They
both.
live, yeah,
So you
a
can.
spectrum lives in all of us, right?
Yeah, sorry,
And
I have a millipede on my desk suddenly. I really don't know where he
oh
came from. He's like this big, and I'm like, no,
no.
no. I just wanted to say that.
And understanding and feeling comfortable, and also it's one of it if you get to a point in in a romantic relationship, and to me, if you're going to have like a long-term forever sort of relationship, you have to get to this point where at least to me, if it's going to be healthy, where you can show that how dynamic that is, right? Where you can get to a point where you can ask your partner for I'm in the mood for XYZ, or I'm in a mood for and one of the things that I you know tell people, just like any other form of communication, like public speaking, right? um you get used to public speaking by speaking publicly, right? You get used to talking about sex by talking about sex. And it's not something that's going to just flow out um naturally without working at it, right? Everyone has to work at it. And the more you do that work as a part of a relationship dynamic, the easier it's going to be, the healthier it's going to be, and the more you're going to enjoy it, right? One, because you're going to notice your partner is going to feel more comfortable, like just expressing him or herself. If as you get more natural in that dialogue, and that is going to, or that will open the door for exploration, and a different level of intimacy. And that's really what we want to emphasize to people, that this is not about bashing male partners, right? This is about helping men understand women's bodies, right? Because they've never been taught. We've never been taught about our bodies. You sure as hell has never been taught about our bodies, right? Not from any meaningful source. Um, and normalizing things like how long it takes. Fellas, it's gonna take some time, right? Like, it's this foreplay is not an optional. Like, you need to just go ahead and put that in a book somewhere, write a little note to yourself. It is not optional. Very few women are going to be able to orgasm without foreplay, right? What we call foreplay is the first step of getting to an orgasm, because there are physiological stuff that have to happen, right? There are four phases. The first is people have to be aroused. And what that means physically is your breath is going to deepen. You're going to have blood flow increase to your pelvis. The pelvic floor is going to begin in a lot of ways to like hold tension. And these are the physical things required for an orgasm to actually be able to build, right? And so you can't like just skip that step. Um, the next step is that you know the tension. I don't know. I describe it as a capacitor. I don't know why I have that analogy. It's like you hold tension, hold tension, hold tension, hold tension, and then it dissipates, right? And so the plateau is that building. And for women, that can take a while. That can take, you know, upwards of 20 minutes with a partner, right? You can, and if you're on certain medications, if there are certain like you know, psychological issues going on, meaning it doesn't even have to be big issues like you're stressed or you're worried. It could take upwards of 20 minutes or upwards of never, right? Like sometimes you're just not going to have an orgasm, and being able to know your body enough to say, okay, yeah, this isn't going to happen. And your partner not feeling like that is an insult. That just could be you're not in the physical, you know, space to have that happen. Johanna, sorry, my daughter's like at the door.
Okay, no, do it. I can continue. I can continue on that if you want. If you want, need a couple of seconds.
Here, yeah, give me a couple seconds. Let me just let me just
sure.
talk to her 1 second, everyone.
Do. Because I can just jump in and say something about what she just said. That so really try to keep this short, but foreplay, yes, it's necessary. The foreplay could start in the morning when my partner is pouring coffee for me, or holding the door when I exit our home, or getting that text message, or doing the dishes, because I can really not relax in bed when we are having a good time if I know the kitchen is filled with dishes. So for any partner who would like to work on their foreplay to make this more of a something that is included in your daily life, the small things that you can do as appreciation will take you a long way when it comes to feeling connected and you know, feeling that we have this vibe, or it's nice between us, or when we don't have to fight about laundry or whatever. Like, it's really, really making it hard for a lot of women to actually be horny, because we're just not there. We've been fighting so much about other things, so we feel so unappreciated or unheard or seen in different ways, if this is the reality that you're in. That it's really hard for us to get there in bed.
Yeah.
But also because you said about, you know, the energy, and sometimes we want it in one way and sometimes we want it in another way. Like, hell yeah, because sex in a Monday morning, 6:30, will be very different from a Saturday evening.
Mm-hmm.
Or when I have, you know, whatever, doing my dissertation, or I work in 2 jobs because I need to, or if I'm on an all-inclusive vacation. Like, sex will forever be different. Also different depending on where women are in their cycle, because we can get more access to I want more when we're ovulating. And then that's a great time for us to be the one taking initiative, or more initiative, or coming with funny suggestions. That doesn't mean that we want the sex in that way 1 week later or 2 weeks later. Like, there is no always, never right or wrong here. It's really a vibe. You need to create it together. Like, you need to be able to use these energies and shift in between them. And this is how you can always keep the attraction, because you keep the polarity energy wise. Yeah. And that's like, I wish we could all do that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I actually like. So I try in my writing, when I like write sex scenes, I always make sure to write consent, what consent looks like, like what does it actually look like? Because so many times we don't actually write what it looks like. And it looks like actually using words. And asking people like especially if it's unclear, you got to ask people, how they want it, like what they want, what exactly they want. So use words, right? And it can be sexy though, like that's the thing I tried to like, it can be a part of sex. It doesn't have to be this like awkward like okay, like now we're gonna sit down and like sign a contract. It can be a part of the way that you talk. It can be sexual, but also can be clear, right? Because you need consent and it needs to be clear. Like people have to learn how to have that conversation and how to have that dialogue. And again, that only happens with practice, but we don't show people how to do it, right? We don't show people how to have that dialogue. And so that's one of the things that I like, I don't know if people recognize it, but I'm like, I'm writing consent. This is consent. I want to be like put a box around it as a clinician. Like this is what consent looks like. This is what we mean. Like ask. Like this is what I'm talking about. Like I'm trying to show you like through like storytelling, what it is. Because it is different, right? But it's also really necessary. And then like I see like I love that the chat is like really blowing up. This warms my heart. I definitely want to do a talk in a more private setting, invite people to really like come off mic and ask questions. But there was a comment about being like something that is like on a to-do list, and I totally get that. Like to it it's not, especially at the beginning, if you are not quite sure. For women, they could have been having sex for decades, right? And still, in terms of like really understanding their bodies, maybe it's a new thing, right? Maybe it's only been a couple months, right? It will take time, and that means that it's something that can't always happen if you have like kids banging out the door, right? If you have a lot of distractions, if you're really stressed at work. But that doesn't mean never, right? So that's why I would try to tell people like now might not be a good time, but that doesn't mean never. When you do get time, because again, I would think of it like meditation. I put in that same category. I put in the same category as I think of mindfulness. It is a being, learning to be in your body completely, to the point where you can not think about other things. You are just thinking about your own body. And that has physical and psychological benefits that you don't want to deprive yourself of. So you should put it in that same, category as like, there's big, a couple years ago with like all the apps that came out, everyone was like learning how to meditate. And that was like kind of a fad. Well, having an orgasm can be a very similar meditative experience, where you're in yourself, which is really the point. The point of all these practices is you are actually letting go of the thinking mind and you are just feeling in yourself. And that has benefits, especially in this world where there's so many things going on. Finding ways that you can release that you can center yourself. It is important. It is part of taking care of your health, right? We don't want you masturbating like in the middle of work. Like, well, I'm not trying to make people delinquents. But there's a time and a place, right? With a partner, without a partner. But there are benefits to it. And so I would just keep that in the back of your mind. And then also, it's actually a lot of fun. It's actually a lot of fun with a partner, without a partner, right? It allows you to just be a different version of yourself, which I think we all need, really.
Yeah, Yeah, again, I have so much to say, but I will try to keep it short. I think I just would like to answer to a couple of the comments that we didn't answer so far. That we got a comment that men are pretty screwed up with respect to sex, romance, and love. It takes experiencing emotions, and we train that out of men. And I think, unfortunately, that's very, very, very true, which is one of the negative aspects of watching too much porn. Because for a man who did not get access to his full emotional potential or patterns or understanding himself, what he is watching, he might also think that he is supposed to do it like that. Not necessarily because he likes it, but that's how all of the real men are doing, so he should do the same.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we're two individuals that are suffering or not getting the best pleasure in an experience that could be so different. Just also, and I think between sex, romance, and love, there is connection and intimacy. But
Yes.
for you to reach that, you need vulnerability and authenticity. And that's also something about why it's important to practice in communicating and maybe saying what we really want or how we want it, or writing somebody a sexy message, but whatever it means for you in whatever situation, because we really need to add more of that. And another comment is, it feels like it's just one more thing to put on the to-do list. How about scheduling 15 minutes of self-care?
Yes.
2 nights, evenings, mornings, a week. That is just for you and the mirror, or just for you and a book, or just for you and your lotion. It really doesn't mean what it is, with the goal of being more connected to your sensuality or your erotic self, not the performance part. Because the more you learn about your sensuality, about your playfulness, about your, how to surrender or not, or whatever, the more you will be able to reach whatever levels or different types of orgasms. But you need to know what's actually turning you on. So I think that's maybe a way to reframe it, like to do it with self-care, not as a chore.
Yes, exactly. I think people go through different life phases. If you're in a very stressful situation, it's going to be hard to carve out that time. I like to give like realistic counseling, right? And to not blame yourself for that, right? It can be challenging. But I also want to, say that it could be very rewarding in a very, like, a lot of tangible ways, right? So one, physically rewarding for you. There is mental health benefits. And then there are benefits for your relationship, which have a lot of ripple effects, right? If you're in a good marriage, if you are getting along with your partner, your life is better. It just is the case, right? There's less chaos in your life. There's less fighting. The other people who live in your household are happier. Things are better. You're less stressed. You're healthier. I mean, this is just reality, right? And so I wouldn't. I think we don't think enough about like the actual benefits of sex, and having a good, comfortable sex life, to just having a good, functional life. And that, I think, is a reframe. I try to give people, like, this is a part of, imagine you were so constipated and hadn't pooped in 3 weeks. You're going to be a miserable person, right? Like, there are, your body is physiologically, has certain processes, and we've just put this in a box somewhere, where we call it unnecessary. And that's just not true, right? It's actually not true. There are a lot of uh, physiological benefits from letting yourself be to experience all parts of your humanity, right? This is a part of being human. This is a part of human connection. And to say you're not going to experience one big part of being human, that deprives you of something. And so that's why I think it's so important. It is not just about pleasing a partner. It is about experience, right? And getting used to having conversations about that. Again, is a skill. Like I do like romance. I don't even know. It's not even romance. It's like a bad. I have like no real category. Um, to put it, but like fiction with like erotic elements, right? And um uh it in having to think about how do you put stuff like that into words, right? It makes me think about language and how to talk to a partner, right? It's something that you practice, and it provides the more that you do it, the more that you get used to that language, the easier it is to communicate, and then the less kind of conflict it causes in your life, right? Because a bad sex life, it has negative consequences, right? It does. We try to pretend it doesn't, but it does. It has negative consequences, and we just kind of paper over them as if like those things don't exist if we don't talk about them. But that's not reality. We know it has negative consequences. We know it can have a negative effects on relationships. We know it can cause people to feel more closed off. We know all of these things, yet we haven't given people the language to actually do something different.
There is another really important point here to make. The intersection of mental health and sexual health is
Yes.
never fully understood or talked about. So, and because we know that anxiety, stress, and depression, burnout as well, are the three biggest mental health challenges that people have. And some people are challenged with multiple ones of them. I think for them, if they are listening, or when someone is probably listening, when you said that, having a good sex life is so important and all of these things. And I think for them, the question is, how do we do it? Like, how do you feel horny? How do you want to get out of bed? How do you want to shower? How, like, all of these things that in this particular conversation, we kind of take as they're there. And maybe this should be a future live as well, where we actually talk about anxiety, stress, and depression, and how these intersects and how it impacts a relationship. And I wrote it down to not mess it up and forget it. But I'm also thinking about the question we got, that, how can you reframe sex time? Once I get there, I'm good, but getting there is like, it's hard to get there. And then I'm thinking, if this is hard to get there for me personally, only with me, then I would sit down and think about that. Like, why am I so resistant from having this time with myself? Because this is supposed to be care.
Yes.
And if it's with the partner, then is the time where your partner suggests this or invite you, is this really the best time for you to have sex? Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? Are you a Saturday morning, Sunday evening? What is your pattern? Like, what makes sense for you? And also, if this is with your partner, then is your partner building this up properly along the day, so that it's easy to start in the evening, if that's the pattern? Or is your partner trying to catch up on the time and you just have 20 minutes because the kids are sleeping? Man, that's a tricky thing to perform and have something good. Compared to if we build it up, the vibe, the connection all day or half a day, then of course it's easy to start it when we want to start it, or when we have time. And with that, because people say, I hear this a lot, like sex should be spontaneous, like it should just
Yes.
be. No,
Right.
man, like,
Yeah.
no, that's great. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
How
That's
many
Julia
things in
Roberts.
your
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
spontaneous
Right. Yeah,
like that?
exactly.
Because
Yeah.
everything you practice, everything you focus on, everything you put intention in, you
Yeah.
see more, you want it more, you like it more, you get better at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
You don't
going
just
to the
stumble into
gym.
the
Are
gym,
you
right? Yeah,
no,
exactly.
you go
You know, you
spontaneously to
plan.
the
You
gym?
plan. Exactly. Yeah, you
Or
plan,
should
right?
or should I spontaneously brush my teeth when I feel it? It's also like
Yeah.
we don't need to use that narrative when it comes to sex. Also, like we
Right.
can choose to create some variations to that. That
Yeah.
I am going to prioritize my self-care 2 times a week, 15 minutes, whatever I choose that self-care is for me, because I want to be closer to myself. And I
Right.
think it will be positive for my relationship. That's
Yeah.
something I can choose.
Right. Right. And creating an environment where sex is possible for both parties, right? For enjoying sex is possible for both parties. Like for me, and again, this happens with conversation. Like if the kids are around, like, you know, I'm not going to enjoy sex, right? Like, cause I'm like thinking about, like, are the kids up? Do I hear a baby monitor? Do I like, you know, these are things that like have to be like taken care of. Otherwise, I can't even really engage in that way, right? Because my mind is distracted. Because you can't have an orgasm and be distracted. Like it's not physiologically possible. There are certain things that just make it so that the hormone cascade that happens just can't happen effectively if you are like your mind is somewhere else. Like it can be that easy to lose an orgasm. I try to tell people like you know, you hear like, you know, a baby monitor go off or your phone rings. I mean, it could be that could be it. Like that's could be it. Like
Yeah.
that's it. Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna get like it's not gonna happen today. It is a very that we don't fully understand, right? We don't fully understand the what has to happen physically. But we know it's very delicate. The other thing I want to, you know, have people understand is that medications have a huge effect on sexual performance, a huge
Yes.
effect. And that's not necessarily, you know, everything in medicine is about risk and benefits. And that's how I always do my counseling, right? You know, when
So
patients ask me,
can
is a
I
medication?
just need to get
Yeah,
a charger. I need a
yeah. Oh,
charger.
yeah,
I
of
will be
course.
back.
Yeah. Um, uh, but I, you know, try to frame things as like risk and benefits, um, because you're not comparing taking a medication to nothing, right? Or to like, you know, being completely fine. You're comparing taking the medication to this untreated disease, right? And when you think about, you know, the medications that have effects on sexual performance, that's how you have to think about them. So SSRIs are notorious for them. You know, about 50 to 70% of women on SSRIs experience sexual side effects, and these are real. They can be very extreme. Um, I've taken an SSRI, and I can tell you it had a very dramatic effect on my sexual life. Um, but having untreated depression has a dramatic effect in your, you know, sexual life too, right? And so, you know, there are times where you need that medication. But you know, things to for people to consider is uh, just because you have been on an SSRI, you know, before, especially if it was provoked, like if you had an episode of depression that was, you know, situational. I mean, mine was 100% my job. Like, you know, it's no surprise. Like, medicine is very toxic, and you know, I've you know had really horrible experiences. And many physicians are on SSRIs because of that. Just putting that out there. But when I left that experience, I got better, right? You don't necessarily have to continue to take the medication indefinitely, but just to be clear, SSRIs, if you've been taking them for a long time, they're not that easy to come off of. And it's something that you really, really need to talk to your doctor about, because you can have a lot of unintended consequences if you try to like wean yourself off of that medication without the appropriate supervision. It can, give you, serious side effects that you want to avoid. And so the take home message is sexuality is just so complicated. There is environment, there is, medications, there is knowing your body, there is partnership. All of these things are layered onto it. But it is one of the most human things you can experience. And it is, it allows you to explore yourself in a way that I think other things just simply do not allow you to explore. Your motivations, the things that you like, the things that you don't like. There's so much that you can gain for yourself, independent of partnership, that have real benefit and have the other consequence of making you a better partner, right? Because the more that you understand yourself, the more that you can communicate that to a person, someone else, right? Because, we're not born, it's hard enough to understand yourself. Like, you're not going to understand this other person. They have to tell you, they have to tell you, they have to show you, you have to learn together sometimes. And normalizing what that is, like that intimacy, that experience, that is relationships. Like that is that's what separates uh, a romantic relationship from another type of relationship, right? Is that there is a partner that you, or a set of partners that you have this very unique experience with. And if you're an adult and you're consenting, that can have a lot of really positive effects on your life. Are very healthy and very normal. But we have just like layered on so many other things on it that it's become so hard for people, right, to do something that is so innately human.
And there is so many more perspectives than the ones that you mentioned as well, because you said, what did you say? Like the physical, the emotional, like I don't even remember what you said because I needed to write it down. I'll write my own thoughts down. The spiritual aspect of sexual
Yes.
connection. It's
Mhm.
extremely special to unfold, to discover, to surrender to, whatever that means for anyone who is listening. That's a whole conversation on itself. But also attachment styles, because we talk about attachment styles and how they show up in relationships. We rarely talk about how they express themselves in the bedroom and how challenging that can be. And how do we communicate about our differences? And how do we balance that in a way that makes none of us feel totally rejected or totally overwhelmed, which is another whole conversation by itself. But also when we're talking about, we're really trying to not go into this right now because we're already like 45 minutes over time.
Oh, yes, I know. We have to do another session because we're still getting questions. Yeah.
But I think just to add, stress, anxiety, and depression, and because we mentioned like how does that show up, or like what are the symptoms or the effect of that in your sex life with your partner or partners or in your relationship. But I just, like, as a reminder, is the sex life that is not working a symptom of the medication, or is that a part of the root cause to why you're having a depression? It's a very good question that I would love for the people that sorry, my cat is currently looking for his millipede, probably. That is worth to. I live in Thailand. Like, we have all kinds of animals everywhere. Which is worth to think about. Like, are we trying to talk about or treat the symptom of something?
Yes.
Or are we actually looking at the root cause?
Right.
And that's something that I think we should take more time to like lay out for people properly when it comes to mental health and sexual health in that intersection.
Right.
Do you want to answer the last question? I think we answered
Yeah.
the other ones.
I think we got to most of them. Yeah. So stress is huge. So stress, chronic stress causes elevated levels of cortisol, and that has a direct effect on sexual response. You have to be you have to have a baseline of comfort and relaxation in order to be aroused. In order to even get to that first step that's required to have an orgasm. And so if your body is in chronic stress, that means you're always in fight or flight. And so your body simply cannot be in fight or flight and then at the same time be in rest and pleasure. It cannot exist in those two states. You weren't built like that. And so that's one reason that women who are in whatever, if you're in a phase of your life where you are having a lot of chronic stress, so early motherhood is an example, caregiving, abusive relationship, a bad job, it could be a million different things, like financial stress. Um, it is going to be very difficult for you to also find the capacity, the bandwidth, the in yourself to also develop this this part of your sexual life, right? And so I like to explain to people we all have what do you call it, phases in our lives, right? We all have times where we're really stressed, where we're less stressed, and the that is going to have an effect on your sex life, and you should expect that, and understand how to respond to it, right? We should be teaching people the skills to respond to it. How do you maintain like a marriage in a place where like you're both under a really a lot of stress, and that's going to have an effect on your sex life. Well, how do you maintain relationship in those in that setting? We don't give people the tools for that. We don't even tell people that that's normal. Like, she could be so in love with you, so attracted to you. So, but if she's that stressed out, it's not going to happen. And you have to, you know, teach people that this has nothing to do with you, right? Like, it has nothing to do with you. It is just how bodies are built. Now, some people can overcome that. Some people can kind of ebb and flow through stress. And that is again a learned skill, right? Like that's why I like to put that in the bucket of like meditation, right? Because we all have a certain amount of stress in our lives, and that's just being human, right? And a skill that we all have to learn. And we even start, you teach it to kids kind of naturally, right? When, my kids are having like a meltdown, right? Something didn't go their way. Their response is to completely decompensate and they just like lose it, right? And you can see it very much. And then, every year a kid gets older, you can see how their body learns to self-regulate, right? What a 2-year-old does is not what a 3-year-old does, not what a 5-year-old does, is not what a 10-year-old does. If it is, we have a problem, right? You learn how to control that behavior, and that is a normal, healthy part of human development. Well, your sexual well-being is a part of that spectrum, a part of how you maintain balance as a person, right? But again, like just like you are taught how to, we have our kids like count. We put them in a corner that's quiet, right? So they can learn to basically calm down. Nobody teaches people how to connect on a sexual level. It's supposed to be this innate, just happens, right? Like if you love someone enough, it just like, everything just flows. And that's not true. And we're not often giving permission to just like say that. It's not true. It's not true. And but there are ways of improving it, right? Just like anything else, there are ways of dealing with with all of these issues. But the first step is giving yourself permission to even ask the question. So I congratulate everyone who's here. I'm glad for people are that's what I'm always scared about, like people, and that's why I try to speak so honestly, right? I'm trying to give a permission structure to even ask the question. It is normal to have these questions. It is absolutely normal. Trust me. Other doctors, when they get an OB/GYN, like, when you're standing next to them, they're like, hey, I wanted to pick your brain about this other thing. Like even other physicians, like they don't, not people just don't know this stuff, right? It's not taught formally in a lot of settings. And don't beat yourself up for not knowing, right? Ask, question, explore, and be kind to yourself.
Like, yeah. And also, I took so many notes because there's so many topics we could talk about. Because we basically said all this time that, prioritize self-care, like have more sex or like make sex funny and like, choose it. But for the people listening who's in relationships that they've been in a long time where they feel no attraction anymore, then they need to do something different. Like there is a way to talk about that specifically as well. So I just wanted to say that out loud,
Yeah.
that could be a whole conversation by itself as well.
Yes.
Because that's an other side of the timeline of what we're talking about, that we got into a point where it's like we just don't know if we even want to. And also, shit, there's this millipede again. I don't know how he got there. Now the cat is here again, but he could maybe get it out. No, like now he just walk around and meows, and this thing is eating my desk. Anyway, also for people who are asexual, like they have no interest in sex at all. There's so much to say about that as well, and not necessarily with the goal to get these people to have sex, because if they really don't feel like it, which could also be about mental health and that intersection, but there is so much clarification that in general needs to be done around. If I don't want to, maybe I just want to, and maybe I need to be respected in that, which is also about communication. So no, like there is so many things to say. Shit, it's coming here. Sorry.
Well, we are over time. We've gone 2 hours, but I wanted to, Anne and I and the Labor Collective are going to be doing a lot more programming around this. We hope to develop a lot of resources that people can use to do this exploration on their own with partners in a structured setting. We're both, providers that are licensed in our, specialty. And so depending on where people are, there are opportunities to kind of meet and chat with us. And so, we want to continue to have this discussion and normalize it, right? And then also provide like private, more private settings where people can ask questions. So small group settings, that sort of thing. We are developing a course for two courses. And one of the benefits of being, subscribing to the Labora Collective is we, I tend to just give everything away for free. So you have access to all these materials. They will be part of your subscription, and it's quite substantive. And so the type of things we'll be talking about, we have one dedicated for younger people. That's more about, and this is kind of written from, to cater to an audience of somewhere between like 16. You need your parents' consent if you're underage. We actually have to have you have that in order to participate. But somewhere between 16 to 25. And to talk about, some of just the basics, right? A lot of places don't teach anatomy anymore. They don't teach you the words, the right words, what's normal, what's not normal, what, like your question about pain, right? Like you shouldn't be having pain with sex, right? Like that, you shouldn't be grinning and bearing it. That's something that needs to be addressed. There could be painful parts, right? And we can help you identify what pain might be a transitional pain versus a pain that like, okay, no, you need to go and, that's not normal for that to persist. And then also things around consent, and what that means, like what that actually looks like. And then, kind of some cultural deprogramming around things like pornography and because there's like a real epidemic with young men. I think I read some statistic. It was like insane. I want to say it was like thousands of hours. Like young men are watching
Yeah.
thousands of hours of porn. Like to the
So
point where you're just like, what? How is that possible?
I have a
But
more
yeah, like
disappointing statistic on that one. We are down in age right now where we are treating porn addiction in 9-year-olds.
oh God.
That's where we are today. So, when you
Yeah.
say the young adults where porn is a part, I'm also thinking the importance of teaching parents how do we talk about
Yes.
porn? Like,
Yes.
how do we talk about it when we know how crazy that world or that access can be? How can we
Yes.
talk about it? What could we say? How could we put boundaries or limitations
Yes.
in a way that still foster the conversations we need to
Yeah,
have,
absolutely.
which is
Yeah, yeah, and giving parents that language. So that's part of what we want to give you is that language. To have, my kids are still young, thank God. I haven't had to like traverse that territory. But one day, I will. And have like how do you have that conversation in a way that both protects the child, still keeps the boundary between parent and child, and but keeps them safe, right? Like because that's the goal. We need to do all of these things. And I am you know, a believer that just because you tell people not to do something doesn't mean they're not going to do it. That's just my wild, hypothesis. Is that it just like you have to give people the skills, right? You have to give people the knowledge, and then my personal belief is then they can make the best decision that they can with that full set of knowledge. Trust your young people, right? Is what we're trying to empower them and then trust them because we have no other choice, so we might as well. Because one way or the other, like people are going to do what they're going to do. And then the other thing we have is for older, and not older, I'm trying to find the right, but like, people my age and older, who are, dealing with different problems, right? It's not the same necessarily, issues with understanding consent, yes, no, but it could be. Um, uh, it's other things, right? It's children, it's stress, it's what the fatigue, relationships go through fatigue cycles, right? Relationships have conflict, right? Uh, there are times where you're going to not get along with your partner. There are times you're going to be more or less attracted to your partner. How do you manage that, right? And there are ways, right? Because the goal is we want people to be happy, healthy, and supporting each other. Like that is our goal. We are here to empower women. We are here to provide high quality resources, and we want people just to have joy in their life. There's like just so much negative stuff happening all the time, and if we can do one thing to try to help just make your day a little better, we want to do our part. And so I hope that you all join us again when we have these conversations. We will be putting out a schedule. I keep saying I'm going to do this, but like of what's happening ahead of time because I know it's kind of like really impromptu. We're trying to get to that point. We're balancing a lot. We're a small team, so we're still getting our sea legs together. But thank you for continuing to support us. If you want to see certain things, let us know. We're very responsive. Send me a DM, right? We will respond to you. If you're interested in learning about like sex toys, if you're interested in learning about techniques to work with a partner, if you're interested in learning about techniques to work with yourself, right? If you're interested in learning, you want to learn about like the health benefits, if you want to learn about like, you know, vulvar anatomy, just let us know. And we'll do our best to you know, to make all those things possible.
Totally. This is basically what I talk about every day, all day long. My kids are bigger. I have two kids or two sons. They are 16 and turning 13. So when you said, "Oh, they're small," I didn't have to do it. I'm like, "Yeah."
Oh goodness.
No, done
Oh,
that
I have some
already.
time before I have to navigate those waters.
Yeah.
You know, when
Yes.
I think about like when they find like my writing, I'm like, oh, well, hopefully that will help provide an
Surprise.
entry point.
Surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. No, but there is so many good ways to do this. We just that we don't know it until we're sitting there and we feel panic because we need a solution. But there is so
Right.
many good ways to talk about all of these things.
Yeah.
And I think also just as a reminder that if anyone or if anyone can talk about whatever things that you would like to have answers, I think we're a pretty good duo for that. Like it's not so easy to scare us or like to make us
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yes.
I think we
Yes.
are
Yes.
most of the things. Like try us, please try us, and
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, try us. I think that's a good, you know, we want to be helpful. And we're really excited about seeing this community grow and you know, look out for more emails and announcements for us. Next week we're going to start um the kind of our formal newsletter. I know we've been kind of publishing a little bit erratically because it's taken me some time to really think about like what is a newsletter that's worth reading. Trust me, Aisha's probably like pulling her hair out because I have created and destroyed probably like, you know, 30 different concepts, and finally we're at one where I'm like, okay, I think this is worth people you know, actually taking their time to read. 'Cause I know you guys are busy. I know there's a million other things that you could be doing instead of being here with us. And so I feel honored for that time, and we want to make sure that that time is valuable. And so, you know, help us by, you know, pointing us in the right direction. Um, and then with that, it's 6 o'clock. I know everyone has family. Well, 6 o'clock where I am. I know it's, you know, we're Anna's halfway around the world right now. So, what time is it where you are?
Now it's 5 a.m. So now it's
5
like
a.m.
morning. My oldest is going up to go out and run. My cat is obviously awake, bringing in crappy insects. But yeah, no. So now it's
Yeah,
morning.
Aisha, what time is it where you are?
It's
Uh,
3 a.m.
3
already.
a.m. So still well middle of the night. So you know, I want everyone to know like they got up. I have less you can congratulate me less. It's the evening for me, but they got up in the middle of the night, literally to be here to have these conversations. And so thank you, Anna. I look forward to having more of this. And thank you to everyone who has showed up and wherever you are in the world. Please be safe. And then we'll see you next time. Bye.